This is Newsday on the BBC. I'm Rico Hizon in Singapore. The headlines. The creeping menace from the Hawaii volcano. More homes are swallowed by molten lava. As American allies work to save the Iran nuclear deal, President Trump says he'll make an announcement on Tuesday.
I'm Kasia Madeira in London. Also in this programme, across the ethnic divide in Malaysia's election, we meet the Malay candidate standing for the traditionally Chinese party. And the First Lady of the United States announces a new initiative. Melania Trump urges adults and children to be best.
Live from our studios in Singapore and London. This is BBC World News. It's Newsday.
Glad you could join us. It's 8 in the morning in Singapore, 1 o'clock in London, and 2 in the afternoon in Hawaii, where an active volcano is posing an added danger to the residents on Big Island. 35 buildings have now been destroyed by the wave of molten lava, with hundreds more in danger. But officials have told the BBC they're most worried about a facility holding 27,000 liters of a highly flammable liquid, which they're desperately trying to move to safety. James Cook has all the details.
Fountains of lava bursting from one of the world's most active volcanoes. Kilauea has been erupting constantly for more than 30 years, but not like this. Destruction unfolding in slow motion, gobbling up the ground in a residential area called Leilani Estates. Since Thursday, lava has been spewing forth from more than 10 fissures in the earth. This community was built on a field of fire, and no one knows where the next rupture will emerge. Hundreds of homes are threatened, hundreds of people have been forced to flee.
As you go down the hill, you can see that Leilani Avenue doesn't exist anymore. There's a black lava thing and everything's all gone.
At one point, lava burst more than 200 feet into the air, higher than Nelson's Column in Trafalgar Square. At the crater of Kilauea, geologists are using time-lapse videos to keep watch. But even the experts say that predicting the behavior of a magma plumbing system which extends 40 miles beneath the Earth is practically impossible. They're particularly concerned about gas stored in this geothermal plant near one of the fissures, and about sulfur dioxide in the island air, which can prove deadly. This could go on for months, but there's nothing anyone can do about it except to gaze in awe. James Cook, BBC News.
And we will get more from Hawaii in just a moment, so stay with us. But now let's take a look at some of the day's other news stories. President Trump says that he will announce his decision on whether to keep the Iran nuclear deal on Tuesday. Earlier, Britain's Foreign Secretary appealed to the Trump administration not to abandon the deal. Boris Johnson held talks with his American counterpart Mike Pompeo and also appeared on President Trump's favourite television show to warn that there was no plan B to prevent Iran getting nuclear weapons.
I think what European diplomatic efforts have been aimed at is damage limitation, salvaging something that is meaningful. And there are indications from the White House tonight that that could have achieved a measure of success. An administration official saying that tomorrow Donald Trump will announce a partial pullout of the Iranian nuclear deal, although not giving an indication of what that would look like.
Nick Bryant on the Iran nuclear deal. Well, Iran has actually received a boost from the results of elections in Lebanon. Hezbollah, the Shia organization which is backed by Iran, has claimed to have won over half the seats. The Prime Minister, Saad Hariri, said that his Western-backed Future movement has lost a third of theirs. Several senior journalists have left Cambodia's Phnom Penh Post following the sacking of the editor and alleged editorial interference. The paper, seen as the country's last independent daily, was sold at the weekend. The new owners claim that the decision was business restructuring, but staff remain unconvinced.
At least 4 of our senior staff have walked out. They include our managing editor, our business editor, our web editor, and one of the senior reporters who worked on the damaging article. And so basically today we've seen our editorial, our editors gutted from our newsroom.
2 teenage girls have been raped and set on fire in separate incidents in India. One girl died on Sunday. The other is in a critical condition. India's Supreme Court is trying a group of men accused of raping and murdering an 8-year-old girl. The court is moving the trial to a different state, fearing local bias in favour of the accused.
The Supreme Court was hearing a petition filed by the victim's family who feared that if the trial was conducted here, because of heightened tensions between communities, it may not have been heard properly. The victim's father has spoken to the BBC over the phone, and he said that he's happy with the court's decision because he feels that now the case will be heard without any pressure or any fear. The family members of the accused, however, are demanding a federal inquiry into the incident. They say that in this state, which is a Muslim majority state, the Hindu community is being targeted. The incident has deeply polarized people in Jammu and Kashmir.
Yogita Lamai reporting there. Now, tourism accounts for 8% of global carbon emissions, but that's around 3 times more than actually previously estimated. A new study includes details of the carbon footprint, including tourist food, shopping, accommodation, as well as travel. The United States, China, Germany and also India are responsible for the biggest overall impact from tourism. And finally, sport update. Mark Williams has fought off a stunning comeback from John Higgins to claim his 3rd World Snooker Championship. The Welshman won a gripping final, 18 frames to 16, to become the world's oldest winner at the age of 40. Chinese superstar Ding Junhui crashed out in the quarterfinals.
Let's get more now on our top story. An erupting volcano on Hawaii's Big Island has destroyed 35 structures, mostly homes, and is threatening hundreds more. But there is an added danger facing the island, with the lava slowly creeping towards a geothermal facility that holds more than 27,000 liters of a highly flammable liquid. On Sunday, more fissures opened up in the ground, and this is what it looks like. These pictures are from Leilani Estate, which has now been evacuated. In total, 1,800 people have been evacuated from 700 homes since the volcano began to rumble on Thursday after a series of earthquakes. Earlier, I spoke with the Hawaiian Senator Mike Gabbard, and I asked him what the current threat level is regarding this geothermal plant.
Aloha, Rico, and thank you for having me on. The gas, it's called pentane. That is you mentioned the 27,000 liters. It's at the Puna Geothermal Ventures plant, which is close by to where the fissures, where the lava is coming from. It's about a mile away from there. And so they've got it. The gas is placed at the highest level on the property, but they're trying to get some containers in there so that they can actually remove the gas. The problem there, of course, is it's going to take a couple of days to do it. So we're all kind of hoping that this does not explode. According to the people who run the plant at PGV, they're saying that even if it does explode, it's not going to affect the nearby homes.
What is the current threat level as we speak, Senator?
As I said, as of just a few minutes ago, that's the latest report that we have, that they are planning on moving the pentane gas, and they're waiting for the containers, but it will take a couple of days to move it. But according to the company, they're assuring the community that there is no danger, even if it does explode, that it will not blow any of the houses up.
What about the threat level of more eruptions and more lava moving into the communities around the Big Island?
Yes, Rico, and that of course is the big threat, is the lava and the sulfur dioxide, the gas. Unfortunately, this is very unpredictable. The scientists are doing their best, but you cannot predict what's going to happen next. The earthquake that happened Friday was 6.5. magnitude on the Richter scale. That was the biggest earthquake since 1975. And that actually knocked out the electricity for 14,000 residents on the Big Island. The power has been restored, but we're just hoping that, that the worst is over.
What more help can be extended to the residents on Big Island?
Well, Rico, I think, people, their shelters have been provided. The Red Cross are providing shelters for people where they can sleep and eat at the Pahoa Community Center and also at the community college there. That's where residents are going, the ones that you mentioned, the 1,800 residents that have been evacuated. But everybody, the authorities are allowing the residents to come back to their homes so they can take out their valuables. But, for example, on the evening news last night, you had people who were lined up on their cars on the highway for hours and hours and hours trying to get in to save their valuables. But they're just doing it, and they're allowing people to do that. But at a certain point, at like 6 p.m., when the sun starts to go down, they're asking everybody to get out of there because, again, they do not know. They cannot predict where the next explosion, where the next fissure of lava is going to explode.
Senator Gabbard there speaking to Rico a little earlier. Now, all this week we're looking ahead to Malaysia's general election. It's seen as one of the most hotly contested campaigns in the country's history. One of the key issues in the poll is race. Prime Minister Najib Razak has warned that a vote for the opposition is a vote for the largest ethnic Chinese group. But the DAP is pushing back by fielding a number of Malay candidates. Our correspondent Jonathan Head has been following one of them.
Shafura Othman is on a mission. The young opposition candidate is travelling across rural parts of the constituency she's contesting, trying to break the racial stereotypes that dominate Malaysian politics. Very unusually, Shafura, a Malay, is representing a largely Chinese party, the DAP. Hers is a mixed constituency, narrowly won by the governing coalition last time. But she and her party know that the key to this election is winning the votes of so-called Bumiputras, Malays and other indigenous groups.
Out here, away from the cities and where most of the parliamentary seats are, it is, as you can see from the flags, firmly pro-government territory. Most of the Malays and indigenous people who live here have for decades relied on government help to survive, and so it's all too easy for the Prime Minister to warn them that a vote for the opposition is a vote for a Chinese-dominated coalition that will take Malay privileges away.
It is to allay those fears that the DAP has deployed Shafura to this area.
This is just propaganda by Barisan Nasional, by UMNO, to scare the Malay people especially. Because they know if they play on issues of religious sentiment, racial sentiment, Malay people will be scared and distance themselves from us. By representing the DAP, I want to show that this propaganda is false.
Braving a sea of blue flags, Shafura has come to an Orang Asli village, the original indigenous inhabitants of the Malay Peninsula. Her party hopes that her youth and charm can win their support. But in these remote areas, some of them can't even remember that there is an election on Wednesday. Reminded that Shafura represents change, an end to 60 years of unbroken rule by one party, they seem a bit confused.
I already have a house. There's electricity, water, so everything else, it's not important. We only met her today for the first time, so I can't really say whether I like her campaign or not.
In Malaysia's towns and cities, the hunger for change is evident. In the countryside, where life is simpler, not so much. The opposition is getting its message and its party colours out here, but it can't be sure if that's enough to change their voting habits. Jonathan Head, BBC News, Janda Baik, Malaysia.
You're watching Newsday on the BBC, live from Singapore and London. Still to come on the program. It doesn't look much, but these remains suggest humans have been living in the Philippines for 700,000 years.
Also coming up on the program, Starship Troopers. Just how realistic is Donald Trump's new idea for American security?
Hi.
Welcome back, everyone. You're watching Newsday on the BBC. I'm Rico Hizon in Singapore.
And I'm Kasia Madeira in London. Our top stories. Molten lava is continuing to flow through a neighborhood on one of the islands of Hawaii. 2,000 people have been evacuated.
President Trump has said on Twitter that he will announce on Tuesday whether he is abandoning the international nuclear deal on Iran. Let's now take a look at some of the front pages from around the world, and we start off with the New York Times edition of the Japan Times, and it is watching out for the mysterious hackers who have been targeting the nation's security cameras. 60 cameras from key waterways to a fish market have been affected. The company behind the cameras urged people to change their passwords. Let's now change the page to the New York Times, and it reports on the Pulitzer finalist who's kept many bookworms guessing. Last year, Hernan Diaz, who had no agent, answered an open call for manuscripts. Now he is in the running for the prestigious prize for fiction. And would you buy an electric scooter for your toddler? Well, the China Daily features one youngster taking a spin. The picture, as you can see right now here on the front page, from the International Bicycle Fair underway in Shanghai. But hopefully, this two-wheeled tot will be sticking to his pushchair from now on. Those are the papers, and now Kasia, float us. Trending this morning.
She is indeed, Rico. She has been for the past couple of hours. It's because the First Lady of the United States, Melania Trump, has launched her signature initiative. Now, this is called Be Best. It aims to promote healthy living and using social media in positive ways. But of course, her husband, the president, is well known for using social media and has often been in the spotlight for using it to insult opponents or people whose views he disagrees with. Well, this was the First Lady's message to the media, to cabinet members and to representatives from the likes of Facebook and Twitter.
As we all know, social media can be both positively and negatively affect on our children, but too often it's used in negative ways. When children learn positive online behaviors early on, social media can be used in productive ways and can affect positive change. I do believe that children should be both seen and heard, and it is our responsibility as adults to educate and remind them that when they are using their voices, whether verbally or online, they must choose their words wisely and speak with respect and compassion.
The First Lady of the United States, Melania Trump. Our next story may sound like a blockbuster set in a galaxy far, far away, but the Space Force is in fact Donald Trump's idea to create a new branch of the U.S. military dedicated to fighting in outer space. Recently, he has been pressing the idea, so we've taken this opportunity to see if it could actually become reality.
The Space Force. Does that make sense? The Space Force. We may even have a Space Force.
President Trump has mentioned the Space Force a couple of times, and what he's alluding to is an ongoing debate in Congress that is creating a separate military service that focuses on military space capabilities.
Space is a warfighting domain, just like the land, air, and sea.
The U.S. has become increasingly reliant on space capabilities for military operations across the full spectrum of conflict, from fighting terrorists in Iraq and Syria and Afghanistan.
We need to protect the American people, and security is going to be a very big factor with respect to space.
In 2001, there was a special commission created by Congress, and the final report of that commission recommended eventually transitioning to an independent military service for space. Warfighting in space is not like Star Wars, and it's not Space Marines. There are no military service members in space fighting in these. It's all remote. All of these are unmanned satellites that the military uses.
We have the Air Force, we have the Space Force, we have the Army, the Navy.
There are a lot of things that President Trump has said that other presidents haven't said before, but the U.S. military is critically dependent on its space capabilities, and it's something we have to take seriously.
At some point in the future, we're going to look back and say, how did we do it without space?
It would take several years, even if the decision was made today. First of all, for Congress to decide what to do. I think it will take at least 5 years, maybe more like 10 years, to transition to a new military service for space.
Because we're getting very big in space.
So a little look there to see if Donald Trump's Space Force could in fact become a reality. If you want to see that again, have a look on our website. Now, some stone artifacts recently found in the Philippines show that humans were living there more than 700,000 years ago. That's hundreds of thousands of years earlier than previously thought. They were found by an international team of researchers at an excavation at Kalinga on Luzon, the largest and the most northerly island in the Philippines. Well, this week, their findings were published in the science journal Nature. And I'm pleased to say that Dr. Gerrit van den Berg, who's a senior fellow in the School of Earth and Environmental Sciences at the University of Wollongong in Australia, explained to me a little earlier about exactly what has been discovered.
So what we have found is a partial skeleton of a rhinoceros, and that's already quite amazing because they are very rare. So it's an extinct kind of rhino. On top of that, this rhino has clear signs of butchery marks. So they have cut marks, and bones have been smashed with stones to probably get to the marrow. And the most astonishing is that, as you already mentioned, the very old age of this rhino. So we've been able to date it to 700,000 years ago, and that is the same age as the Hobbit remains on Flores, which were announced in 2016.
What's the thinking here? Because initially the thought was that ancient humans arrived in that particular region around 70,000 years ago. We are talking about 700,000 years ago. That's a huge difference.
That's correct. And this is now the third island where we have indications that pre-modern hominins, so human species that are closely related to us, but not the same as us, inhabited islands in the area named after the famous naturalist Alfred Russel Wallace, Wallacea. So we have on Flores, on Sulawesi, and now also on Luzon indications that an archaic type of human inhabited these islands. And the big question is, how did they arrive on these islands, and who were they actually? Because we haven't found any fossils yet of the toolmaker in Luzon, but the age, 700,000, excludes that the tools were made by modern humans. The oldest evidence that we have for modern humans currently is dated at 300,000 years in Africa. So it's quite amazing, and it generates a lot of questions. How did they get to these islands?
Dr. Gerrit van den Berg from University of Wollongong. Unbelievable, Kasia. A fantastic discovery. My ancestors from 700,000 years ago. I can't believe it. And you've been watching Newsday on the BBC. I'm Rico Hizon in Singapore. Stay with us. We'll be taking a look at the forthcoming Malaysian elections on May the 9th. And with just one day until Malaysians go to the polls, we'll see who is cashing in on major Chinese investments in the country.
Yes, it's a fascinating discovery, isn't it, Rico? Ancient, you're very, very ancient, just stressing that, ancestors. Now, let's leave you with some images of people here in the UK enjoying the very warm weather that we've been having here. with, well, yes, that is lawnmower racing. I kid you not. Lawnmower racing season has got underway. It is a real thing. It happens from May to October, and it's very competitive, but I do stress that for obvious reasons, for safety reasons, the blades on these lawnmowers have been removed.